Joining me now is CBC meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe, who's attended the last two climate change conferences. Johanna, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
So why should Canadians be watching what happens in Glasgow?
Well, scientists are calling this conference really our best last chance at acting on the science, coming together and rapidly reducing our greenhouse gas emissions before we see Earth warm to the most catastrophic of levels. And just before this conference began, scientists from all around the world issued their latest report on the latest science. And Sam, every single section highlights Canada. We're seeing the warming seeing the warming in our north happen 2 to 3 times faster than the rest of the world. Almost every weather extreme that we've seen across this country, even in just the past 6 months, has been boosted because of climate change. So we're already seeing the worst of the effects. I think Canadians want this deal to come together for the safety of the future of our own country.
What are going to be some of the sticking points?
There's going to be some big ones, Sam, and this is why, basically the nuts and bolts of the Paris Climate Accord 6 years ago still to be worked out. We keep delaying it because these sticking points are sticky. First of all, we need a global fund to help the developing countries, and that's a big one. We promised 12 years ago at the Copenhagen Climate Conference that we would start putting together an annual fund of $100 billion to help the developing countries that are going to see the worst impacts, like our island nations. We haven't met that. Another big sticking point is coal energy. Many countries around the world still very reliant on coal, and we need to decide on a timeline, a timetable for countries on phasing that out. Basically, Sam, it's countries clashing when it comes to their political willpower when trying to match up with the science.
Speaking of those countries, some key players are missing. How big of a deal is that?
Yes, notably absent is world leaders from Russia, of course, President Putin not there, also representatives from China. So two of the biggest emitters are not at the table. However, I think the push from other world leaders, as well as the thousands of NGO groups, youth leaders, youth marches happening on the streets in Glasgow, this is the fire that the global community is hoping to light under the feet of the global leaders. So yes, a few key players missing, but that's why leaders are making all of these announcements in the first week, coming together to decide on reducing deforestation and methane, these big announcements happening this week that they're hoping the rest of the world will have to join in on, or else they'll get left behind.
And finally, to bring it back home, how does a conference like this connect to changes we're seeing or may see in Saskatchewan?
Looking at the latest scientific report, that IPCC breaking down the science, it actually points out some of the things that we're seeing in Saskatchewan, the droughts, as well as the extreme flooding. So these reversals in extreme weather events that seem to happen, back to back, and pointing out the drought conditions that we saw last summer actually in that science. These are exactly the kinds of extreme weather events that we're just going to see more of if we move past that 2 degrees of warming, and we're already at 1.1.
Thanks so much for your time, Johanna.
You're welcome.
Johanna Wagstaffe is a meteorologist here at CBC based out of Vancouver. COP26 continues through till November 12th.